More on the diplomacy at stake as well as economic issues. Let's bring in Paolo von Schirach. He's president of the Global Policy Institute, a public policy research firm here in Washington. Paolo, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Let me begin with something Nathan touched upon, and it's these tariffs on steel and aluminum. South Korea, like Canada and Mexico, has asked for an exemption. Do you think they should get the exemption, and will they get it?
Both good questions and both extremely difficult to say. We don't quite understand what the script is for President Trump in all this. First, he said tariffs for everybody. Then he said, oh, maybe somebody is exempted. And again, it looked at the beginning that this was some kind of a move aimed at hurting China. But then, as it turns out, China's imports in both steel and aluminum to the United States are very small. Most of the imports come from Canada and Mexico and out some European countries. And indeed,
South Korea is pretty high on the list as well.
And South Korea. And South Korea is an ally. And particularly at this juncture, given the critical role of the whole business of diplomacy in North Korea and all that, this seems to be hardly the right moment to pile on the South Koreans on trade issues and trade imbalances and what have you. So I am quite confused, to be honest with you, to understand if the administration, the White House, can keep all this straight. That on the one hand, they need South Korea's full cooperation on the diplomatic front, given what the upcoming summit and the unresolved issues in the peninsula, but at the same time opening a new front on trade.
I don't think you're the only one who's confused, Paolo. So you've got the South Korean foreign minister in Washington, and just a few days before, President Trump hints that he might withdraw U.S. troops from South Korea. Is that a likely scenario, and would that be music to Kim Jong-un's ears?
Of course it would be. And again, that would make sense if, I underline if, we get to some kind of a settlement with North and South Korea, meaning we get a peace treaty. Remember, we don't have a peace treaty with North Korea, half a century after the Korean War. And obviously, all this is predicated on having a solution that would seem to be credible about the whole nuclear issue of North Korea. In a context of peace, reconciliation, denuclearization, then one could talk about withdrawing American troops from South Korea.
And what do you make about the fact that there's still no U.S. ambassador to South Korea?
That's a shame. Of course, Tillerson, whatever we can say about his tenure and the way he got fired, he wasn't really proactive in filling key positions at the State Department, including the critical position of U.S. ambassador and many other senior positions that have to do with Asia, Northeast Asia, and the State Department. So we are essentially disarmed from the diplomatic front. The key negotiator had, for the Koreas, had resigned, essentially retired, what have you. As you say, there is no ambassador. Now we still have, technically speaking, no Secretary of State because we are in the interregnum between Tillerson and Mike Pompeo. We don't know what's going to happen at the CIA. McMaster, for all we know.
Yeah, Nathan already mentioned that. We're running out of time, so let me ask you your thoughts about this summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. How likely is it that it really will happen sometimes between now and May, and where do you think it's going to happen?
Look, it probably will happen. This will be a great public relations coup for President Trump, who likes, big, can you imagine?
Productions.
The entire world will watch this. So just by virtue of the fact that it will happen is a coup, a media coup for Mr. Trump. The question is, where do you go from there? A summit by itself doesn't mean anything unless we get what we want, which is Kim.
By we, you're saying the
United States to give up his nuclear deterrent. And I find this extremely unlikely. Maybe there's no time to discuss all this, but basically this is all that North Korea has. And this is its claim to fame. It's got nuclear weapons. You take out the nuclear weapons, it's an impoverished state with people suffering from famine.
I think it's also interesting that there's been really no official confirmation about any of this
from
the DPRK. Paolo von Schirach, thank you so much.